My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Just hearing Hans Zimmer's epic score in your head right now, aren't you? This movie didn't just win Best Picture. It literally brought the sword and sandal epic back from the dead and made Russell Crowe a household name. But here's the thing. The story behind this masterpiece is absolutely insane. We're talking about a film that almost never happened, a script that was rewritten during filming, and some of the most shocking behind-the-scenes drama you've ever heard. Trust me when I say these 10 facts are going to completely change how you see this epic. Fact number 1. Russell Crowe never wanted to be in the movie. Okay, so this is gonna blow your mind right off the bat. Russell Crowe hated the script. Like, absolutely despised it. When Ridley Scott first sent him the screenplay, Crowe's response was basically dismissive, "This is garbage, I'm not doing this." He thought the dialogue was terrible, the story was cliched, and the whole thing felt like a B-movie dressed up with a big budget. But here's where it gets interesting. Ridley Scott basically stalked the guy. He kept calling, kept pushing, kept insisting that they could fix it together. Scott promised Crowe that they'd rewrite the entire thing, that they'd make it something special. And you know what finally convinced Crowe to sign on? Scott told him, "We're not making a movie about ancient Rome. We're making a movie about a man who loses everything and finds his soul." That's when Crowe realized this could be something more than just guys in skirts hitting each other with swords. The crazy part is, Crowe was right about the script being terrible. They literally rewrote it while filming. There were days when Russell would show up to set and have no idea what his character was supposed to say because the new pages weren't ready yet. Can you imagine? The guy who would win an Oscar for this role almost walked away because he thought it was trash. Fact 2. The entire third act was written during production. Speaking of rewriting, this is absolutely insane. The filmmakers had no idea how the movie was going to end when they started shooting. None. They had the basic setup. Maximus becomes a gladiator, fights in the Colosseum. But everything after that, they were making it up as they went along. Ridley Scott would literally be in his trailer at night working with the writers to figure out what happened next. Picture this. You're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a movie and you don't know if your hero lives or dies. The studio executives were having panic attacks, but Scott was like, "Trust me, I've got this." The original ending had Maximus surviving and living happily ever after. But as they were filming, everyone realized that wouldn't work. This character had lost everything. His family, his life, his identity. The only way his story could end was with him joining them in the afterlife. So they completely rewrote the final act to give us that haunting, beautiful ending we all know and love. And somehow, this chaotic approach created one of the most emotionally satisfying endings in cinema history. The "I will see you again but not yet" scene? That wasn't even in the original script. It was born out of desperation and last-minute creativity. Fact 3. Joaquin Phoenix completely improvised his most disturbing scenes. Let's talk about Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, because this performance is absolutely terrifying. But here's something that'll give you chills. Most of his most disturbing moments weren't in the script. Phoenix just went there on his own. That scene where he's talking to his sister Lucilla and gets way too close, touching her inappropriately, that was all Phoenix. Ridley Scott kept the cameras rolling because he realized he was capturing something genuinely unsettling. Connie Nielsen, who played Lucilla, has said in interviews that she was genuinely scared during those scenes.
I've always heard stories about the "am I not merciful" moment. Is there more to that scene? Like, were you prepared for Joaquin to turn it up to 11? Was that
Absolutely not. I was being Marcus Aurelius's daughter. I was not going to give him my eyes. And so I think that's why he leaned in and screamed it at my face, because I think he was like, she is not impressed with my power.
because Phoenix was so committed to being this creepy, unhinged character. But the most shocking improvisation? That scene where Commodus is dying and he's reaching out almost like he wants comfort? Phoenix came up with that in the moment. Even as this monster is dying, there's this pathetic, childlike quality to him. It's disturbing and heartbreaking at the same time. Phoenix actually stayed in character between takes, which freaked everyone out. Russell Crowe has said that Phoenix would just sit in corners, staring at people with those crazy eyes. The guy was method acting a psychopath, and it shows in every single frame. Fact number 4. The opening battle scene almost killed several actors. That incredible opening battle against the Germanic tribes, it was an absolute nightmare to film. We're talking about real fire, real weapons, and real danger. Ridley Scott wanted everything to look authentic, which meant no green screen, no digital armies, just hundreds of extras fighting with real weapons in a real forest that they actually set on fire. Russell Crowe almost died during this sequence, not exaggerating. He came inches from being killed by a horse. There's a moment where he's supposed to duck under a horse's hooves and the timing went wrong. The horse's hoof missed his head by literally centimeters. If he'd been a split second slower, that would have been it for Maximus. And for Russell Crowe. But it gets worse. The fire effects got out of control during one take. What was supposed to be a controlled burn turned into an actual forest fire. Extras were running for their lives, not because they were acting, but because they were genuinely terrified. Some of that panic you see on screen? That's real fear. The scene where the flaming arrows are flying everywhere? Those were real flaming arrows. Oliver Reed, who played Proximo, refused to wear any protective gear because he thought it would affect his performance. The man was 62 years old, standing in the middle of a battlefield with actual fire raining down around him, and he was just, "This is fine."
Fact number 5. Oliver Reed died during production and they used CGI to finish his scenes. Speaking of Oliver Reed, this is one of the most tragic and fascinating stories in film history. Reed was a legendary actor, but he was also a legendary drinker. We're talking about a guy who once arm wrestled sailors in bars and drank them under the table for fun. During production, Reed was staying sober and giving an incredible performance as Proximo. It was like a comeback for him. He was proving he could still do great work. But then, during a break in filming, he went out drinking with some cast members in Malta. That night, he had a heart attack and died. Now, most movies would just rewrite the script to kill off the character. But Reed had filmed most of his scenes, and what he'd done was too good to lose. So they made a revolutionary decision. They would use CGI to complete his performance. This was 2000, remember? When digital effects were nowhere near what they are today. They had to digitally recreate Reed's face for several crucial scenes, including his final moment with Maximus. The technology was so primitive that they had to use body doubles and then digitally map Reed's face onto them. It was incredibly expensive and time-consuming, but they pulled it off so well that most people never even notice. The line "Shadows and Dust." That was one of Reed's last recordings.
Shadows and dust.
Every time you hear Proximo's voice in those final scenes, you're hearing a ghost. It's both heartbreaking and amazing that technology allowed Reed to complete his final performance from beyond the grave.
Fact number 6. The Colosseum sequences were filmed in 3 different locations.
Here's something that'll mess with your head. That massive Colosseum that looks so real and imposing, it doesn't exist. Not as one structure, anyway. What you're seeing on screen is actually a combination of 3 different locations, practical sets, and digital effects that were groundbreaking for their time. They built a partial Colosseum set in Malta, but it was only about a third of the actual size. The rest was created using a combination of matte paintings and early CGI. But here's the genius part. They filmed the crowd scenes in real locations with real people, then digitally composited them into the expanded digital arena. The crowd of 50,000 people you see cheering? That was actually about 2,000 extras filmed in different sections, then digitally multiplied and composited together. They filmed the same crowd multiple times, had them wear different costumes, and then created this massive digital audience that feels completely real. But the most impressive part was the underground area, the hypogeum. That's where gladiators and animals were kept before fights. They built this entire underground labyrinth as a practical set, complete with working elevators and mechanisms. When you see gladiators rising up from beneath the arena floor, that's all real practical effects. The attention to detail was insane. They researched actual Roman engineering and built working versions of the mechanisms that would have been used in the real Colosseum. So when you see those tiger cages rising up, when you see the sand being raked, when you see the elaborate stage machinery, that's all historically accurate and actually functional.
Fact number 7. The tiger scene was completely real and completely terrifying. Let's talk about that tiger scene. Because emphasis, this is where the line between movie magic and actual insanity gets very blurry. When Maximus fights in the arena and suddenly there's a tiger, that's not CGI. That's a real, live tiger that could absolutely have killed Russell Crowe. The animal trainers insisted it was perfectly safe, but Russell Crowe was not convinced. He spent weeks training with the tiger handlers, learning how to move around the animal without triggering its predatory instincts. The key was never to run, never to show fear, and never to make direct eye contact. Easier said than done when you're dressed like a Roman gladiator and there's a 400-pound killing machine 6 feet away from you. But here's the really crazy part. They couldn't use a stunt double because the tiger was trained to work specifically with Crowe. The animal knew his scent, his movements, his voice. Bringing in someone else would have been even more dangerous because the tiger might have seen them as a threat. During filming, there were multiple safety protocols. They had tranquilizer guns ready, escape routes planned, and veterinarians on standby. But despite all the precautions, there were some heart-stopping moments. In one take, the tiger got a little too interested in Crowe and started approaching him in a way that made everyone nervous. You can actually see the moment in the film where Crowe's expression changes from acting to genuine concern. The trainers had to step in and redirect the tiger, but they kept the cameras rolling. That authentic fear you see on Maximus's face, that's Russell Crowe genuinely wondering if he's about to become tiger food. Method acting at its most dangerous.
Fact number 8. The historical accuracy is both incredible and completely wrong. Gladiator is simultaneously one of the most historically accurate and most historically inaccurate movies ever made. I know that sounds contradictory, but hear me out. On one hand, the attention to historical detail is mind-blowing. They consulted with actual historians, archaeologists, and experts on Roman culture. The weapons, the armor, the architecture, the social hierarchies, all of that is meticulously researched and incredibly accurate. When you see the way gladiators hold their weapons, the way they fight, the way the crowd reacts, that's all based on historical evidence. But then, the actual story is complete fiction. Emphasis. Marcus Aurelius was never murdered by his son. Commodus didn't die in the arena fighting a gladiator. The character of Maximus never existed. It's like they built a perfect historical dollhouse and then filled it with completely made-up dolls. The real Commodus was actually a decent fighter who did participate in gladiatorial games, but he fought against disabled opponents and wounded animals. Real classy guy. He also didn't die in the arena. He was assassinated in his bath by his wrestling partner, which would have made for a very different movie. But here's what's brilliant about the historical liberties: they serve the story. The filmmakers weren't trying to make a documentary. They were trying to capture the emphasis, feeling of ancient Rome. The corruption, the spectacle, the brutality, the humanity. Pause, all of that is emotionally accurate, even if the specific events are fictional.
Fact number 9. The movie almost bankrupted DreamWorks. Here's something that'll shock you. DreamWorks was still a relatively new company, and they bet everything on this film. The budget kept growing, the production kept running into problems, and the executives were starting to panic. The original budget was supposed to be around $80 million, which was already huge for the time. But between the rewrites, the elaborate sets, the massive cast, and all the technical challenges, costs spiraled out of control. They ended up spending over $100 million, which was astronomical for the year 2000. Steven Spielberg, one of the founders of DreamWorks, has said that there were and he wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. The movie was taking forever to finish. They had no idea if audiences would even want to see a Roman epic and, let's be honest,
The sword and sandal genre had been dead for decades, but then something magical happened. The first test screening was incredible. Audiences were absolutely mesmerized. People were crying during the final scenes, cheering during the battles, and completely invested in Maximus's journey. The studio executives realized they hadn't just made a movie, they'd created an experience. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Gladiator made over $450 million worldwide, won 5 Academy Awards, and basically saved DreamWorks from financial disaster. It proved that audiences were hungry for epic storytelling, which paved the way for the entire sword and sandal revival of the 2000s.
Fact number 10. The film's most famous line was almost cut from the movie. And finally, here's the most shocking fact of all.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Are You Not Entertained almost didn't make it into the final cut. The line that became the film's signature moment, the line that's been quoted and memed and referenced countless times, was nearly left on the cutting room floor. During editing, some executives thought the line was too on the nose. They felt it was too obvious, too theatrical, too much like the movie was winking at the audience. There were serious discussions about cutting it entirely or replacing it with something more subtle, but Ridley Scott fought for it. He knew that Russell Crowe's delivery was perfect, that the moment captured everything the film was trying to say about spectacle, violence, and human nature. When Maximus throws his sword into the crowd and delivers that line, he's not just talking to the Roman audience, he's talking to us, the movie audience. The line works on multiple levels. On the surface, it's a gladiator taunting the crowd, but deeper down, it's a commentary on our own relationship with violence and entertainment. Are we not entertained by watching people fight and die, even if it's fictional? It's a question that goes to the heart of why we watch movies like this. And thank God they kept it in, because that moment has become iconic. It's been referenced in everything from sports to politics to other movies. Russell Crowe can't go anywhere without someone shouting that line at him. So there you have it. 10 absolutely mind-blowing facts about Gladiator that prove this masterpiece was even more complex and chaotic than the epic story it tells. From Russell Crowe's initial hatred of the script to the revolutionary use of CGI to complete Oliver Reed's performance, every aspect of this production was filled with drama, danger, and incredible creativity. The next time you watch Gladiator, you'll see it with completely new eyes. You'll notice the moments where they're making it up as they go along, the scenes where actors are genuinely terrified, and the incredible technical achievements that brought ancient Rome to life. What did you think of these facts? Did any of them completely blow your mind? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which revelation surprised you the most.